This is solution number 1 for chapter 7 when working with random numbers. Let's go ahead and create a brand new file. We'll go ahead and save that file, and I'm going to save that as chapter 7 solution, and it'll be chapter 7 solutions.py. So this will be our first one, and then let's go ahead and we'll paste in what we're trying to accomplish as a comment. And then I'm just going to break this up into multiple lines so that we can see it a little bit better. So the purpose of this program is we're going to prompt the user to enter in a maximum number to use. Then we're going to generate a random number. And then we're going to see how long it takes for them to guess what that random number is. And we're going to use that by having a timer. We're actually going to use the date time now function, and then we'll subtract that from the ending time, and then we'll just display the number of seconds. So the first thing we need to do if we want to work with random numbers is we have to import random. And this gives us access to the random number functions. Just like if you were going to work with string functions or math functions or some of the others, you have to import certain libraries or packages to give you access to those functions. Now that we have our random library imported, let's go ahead and get the max number from the end user. So this will ask for the maximum number to use. Now let's think, how do we get random numbers? Well, we could go and generate a seed, or we can just let Python handle it, and that's what we're going to do. We're just going to let Python come back with a random number. But the interesting thing is we could use different functions to get this random number. And the function that we want to go ahead and use is going to be the random. You have to state the library dot rand range. Now remember, this is the library you just imported, and if you want to use random number functions, you have to state the library, period, and then the name of the function. The rand range looks for a starting number and a stopping number, and then a step in between. We could say the starting number is 0, and the ending number is going to be imax number. Now, imax number is inclusive, meaning that it's included in that range of numbers. And then by default, the step is 1, meaning 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth. We don't have to put that default in. This will give the random number. Now that we have the random number, we just want to do a while loop. But before we start the while loop, we want to go ahead and get the time, the current time, so that we can subtract that from the ending time. So I'm just going to declare a variable called dStartTime, and the dStartTime is going to be the date time dot now, which returns the current time from the computer. Now, in order to work with the date time, you actually have to import. So we can say from date time import date time. And so this now gives you access to all the date time methods. I could have just come over here and said import date time, but that can bring in a lot more overhead, whereas when I say from the date time, just bring in the date time. And so this actually just brings in a piece of the date time. Either way works really, and there's some debate as to which one you should do. For our purpose, we can do either one right now. So now that we have date time imported, I can go ahead and use that import. And like I said, you could have just said import date time, and that'll work just fine. So either one would work. Now that we have that, we can go ahead and start the loop. And we're going to start this loop, and we're going to say while the loop is true, meaning we have an endless loop that's going on. Now this might be a good example to use the break statement. Or one thing you could do if you don't want to use this type of loop is I could create a variable and call it bContinue is equal to true, And then right here I can say as long as B continue is equal to true, stay in the loop. And then this way I don't have to worry about using the break statement. It's up to you though. Break statement actually works in this situation where somewhere in the program you could just say break. Now that we have our loop ready, we need to get what number they're going to guess. And so we'll say we need to do an int of the input of enter a number between 0 and we're going to concatenate the max number associated with that. So they'll see what number, the range they should enter. And then we'll go ahead and put a colon space on there to clean it up a little bit. After they type in that number, we'll say if I guess is equal to the random number, then we're going to stop the clock, and then we'll print a message that says, congrats, you guessed the number. And otherwise, elif will say if I guess is greater than I random number, we're going to print too high. Otherwise, we'll print too low. And so that will be our loop, and it will just keep going and going. And one thing we could also do if we wanted to is we could clean this up and add a /n there so it'll put a little bit of space in between the inputs. Once it's finally done, and notice we still have this flag though that says, hey, we need to get out of the loop once we guess it, we can say B continue is equal to false. And that will be what gets us out of the loop when it comes back up here to check. If we guess the right random number, we start the timer, we set our flag to get us out of the loop, we print congrats, and then right here we can now say, well, let's go ahead and calculate. I seconds is equal to the end time minus the start time. But you have to remember, this is a date time and this is a date time, so it's really not the total number of seconds. This needs to be the total time. Once we get the total time, then we can say print it took, and we'll convert it to, let's do a float, and we'll say the total time dot seconds. And actually we'll do an int instead. It doesn't make sense to have a float there. It took that many seconds. And we can save that. And now let's see what's going to happen. See if this really returns the date time, then we pull the seconds off. Let's go ahead and run it. And we'll do a Python. The number to use, let's just say 3. Enter a number between 0 and 3. 0. That's too low. Oh look, I'm wasting time on the clock. 1. Oh, we guessed the number. But when we tried to print it, it says, wait, you can only concatenate strings, and that's the same mistake we make a lot of times when we do a concatenation, is we said turn it into int, but we don't need an int there. It has to be a string because once again it's concatenation. So let's go ahead, run it one more time. Maximum number is 3. 0, too low. 1, congrats. It took 3 seconds. So that's the solution for how to do random numbers, how to do a start time and end time, how to pull the seconds off. If you wanted minutes, you could have done minutes. For instance, dot. We could have even had microseconds, hours, and minutes, whatever we really wanted to work on there. So we'll go ahead and leave that as seconds. That's what we were asking for. And that's how we do our little random number with a range. Beginning time, ending time, calculate a timer, and how to do guessing.